The top stories tonight in Y News. Maynilad Water Services Incorporated started its implementation of service interruptions in several areas in Metro Manila and Bulacan until June 1. Following the approval of the minimum wage increase in the National Capital Region, the Labor Department clarifies that businesses in the retail and services sector may apply for exemption from the wage hike. The Commission on Elections will proclaim the 12 winning senators on May 18 Wednesday, but their final ranking cannot be determined yet. Presumptive Vice President Sara Duterte clarifies that pushing for the mandatory ROTC among the youth has nothing to do with her becoming the new Department of Education. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Monday, May 16, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo. We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts. First in the news, Maynilad customers in some parts of Metro Manila may experience low pressure to no water supply beginning today until the 1st of June. JP Nunez will tell us why.
Water service provider Maynilad announces that it will sustain the daily water service interruption to manage the water level in reservoirs. Maynilad customers may experience service interruptions from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. until June 1. Affected areas include Caloocan, Makati, Malabon, Manila, Navotas, Parañaque, Pasay, Valenzuela, Quezon City, and Bulacan. Maynilad said it is managing the quick decline of water level from reservoirs due to high demand for water during daytime. Meanwhile, some business establishments are already preparing containers to store water. They admit to be seriously affected as they need an uninterrupted, reliable source of water to run their business.
Usually talaga, naghuhugas kami ng mga gulay, ng mga karne. Mag-start kami alas 3 ng madaling araw o hanggang alas 10 ng umaga.
Mag-prepare kami, madaling araw, naghahanda na po kami. Hanggang mag-close kami, kailangan namin tubig kasi panghugas ng plato, ganun. Oo. Okay lang yung sa inumin kasi may magagamit naman, may mabibili naman. Yung sa panghugas, mahirap yun.
According to Maynilad, there will be 27 mobile water tankers on standby and ready to deliver potable water as needed. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
President Rodrigo Duterte has signed into law a measure granting night differential pay to government employees, including those in government-owned or controlled corporations or GOCCs. Based on Republic Act 11701, government employees, whether the nature of their employment is permanent, contractual, temporary, or casual, shall be paid night shift differential at a rate not exceeding 20% of the hourly basic rate of the employee for each hour of work performed between the hours of 6 in the evening and 6 in the morning of the following day. The night shift differential pay shall be in addition to and shall not in any way diminish whatever benefits and allowances that are presently enjoyed by government employees. Meanwhile, government employees whose schedule of office hours fall between 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening are not covered by the law, as well as government employees whose services are required or are on call 24 hours a day, such as uniformed personnel. The law shall take effect 15 days after its publication in at least 2 newspapers of general circulation. The National Wages and Productivity Board said micro-enterprises in retail and services can apply for an exemption to implement the wage increase approved by the Regional Wage Board. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
Micro-enterprises with employees 10 below can apply for an exemption for the wage order. Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship and Go Negosyo founder Joey Concepcion said micro-businesses were heavily affected by the pandemic. He explains most of them are still in the recovery phase and the wage increase might cause a few challenges.
Those that are distressed under restructuring, they should also be exempted because they're barely surviving. If they end up closing, that's worse. Everybody gets laid off. No?
The National Wages and Productivity Board explains there are small businesses such as the barangay micro-business enterprises are automatically exempted from the wage order. For micro-enterprises in retail and services, the NWPC said they can apply for an exemption. They only need to submit the required documents proving that they have no capacity to increase the wages for their employees.
Ito nga ho ay by application, so hindi automatic yung exemption na ibibigay doon sa mga mag-a-apply. On the basis of the documents that they will submit, iaaralin ho ito ng mga regional boards. Pagkatapos, they will make a decision whether to grant the exemption or not to grant the exemption depending on the appreciation of the board relative to the documents submitted to the board.
Even though the government approved the wage increase in the National Capital Region and Western Visayas, some workers lament this is not enough compared to how much they spend for their daily expenses. Others, however, are still grateful for the wage increase.
Mahal ngayon ang bilihin eh. Sa pamasahe din, ganun din. Tapos kikita lang kami hanggang ngayon. Dapat, dagdagan nila, dapat maging regular na lang dapat 750 or 850 isang araw.
Maliit, pero wala na tayong magagawa kasi yun lang ang ano nila eh.
Sa akin na tingin ko, kukulangin pa rin dito.
Meanwhile, the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines called on the amendment of the Wage Rationalization Act of 1989. The group complained the process for filing a petition up to the release of a wage order is too long.
At kami ho ay we subscribe to the wisdom of the Congress and the Senate if they find it necessary to revise the existing wage determination structure.
The NWPC, meanwhile, says the agency is open to coordinate with Congress in case the Wage Rationalization Act will be reviewed. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The proclamation of the senators who won in the 2022 elections has been set this week by the Commission on Elections, or COMELEC. However, the senators will not be proclaimed based on their ranking. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
The Commission on Elections has been finalizing the program in process for the proclamation of the 12 winning senators on May 18, Wednesday. It will be held at the PICC Forum Tent City in Pasay City at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Unlike the 2019 senatorial race, they will not be proclaimed based on their rankings. COMELEC acting spokesperson Director John Rex Laudianco explained this is because they will still have to wait for the conduct of special elections in several barangays in Lanao del Sur.
We will proclaim the 12, but there will be no standing or ranking. Ipoproclaim po yung 12 na highest na nakagarner ng votes. Walang standing pa or ranking in the meantime dahil nga kukumpletuhin natin yung Lanao del Sur. Maari lang po magka-apekto sa standing but not the winning senators po. That's why we are confident to proclaim the 12 on May 18, 4 p.m.
The poll body also decided to conduct the proclamation of party list groups on May 19, Thursday, 4 p.m. But the proclamation will be for the groups with the most votes and with guaranteed seats.
Not all 63 seats will be proclaimed on Thursday. It will only be limited to those who are sure that have garnered the guaranteed seats. Okay. Ililimit po natin yan because on the mid and the bottom part of the computation, the remaining total number of party list votes might affect the positioning and standing of the party list groups.
Director Laudianco said health and safety protocols against COVID-19 will be strictly implemented. Senators are allowed to bring 5 guests each, including their documentation officer. All winning senators with their guests should be vaccinated against COVID-19, properly wearing face masks, and have no COVID-19 symptoms.
Ang egress po nila, of course, they will pass through our security ingress. They would have to confirm na rin po, we will confirm beforehand yung kanilang vaccination cards para po madali na yung ingress. Our ceremonies are formal. And alam ko naman po na they will be cooperating with us as they have before. So we have procedures, we have rules, we have guides who will assist them. And we hope that we could maintain the formality of the occasion.
On the other hand, COMELEC Commissioner George Erwin Garcia said candidates can still be proclaimed pending their disqualification case.
Hanggat wala po kasing final na decision doon sa issue ng disqualification at wala pong na pine-prevent kami pati magproklama, wala po kaming choice kung hindi iproklama po ang mananalo, lalo pat ang mananalo ay sa senador halimbawa.
However, the policy is different when it comes to the party list groups and their nominees.
Sa party list po, iba po yung rule natin doon. Ang nagiging rule po dati ay kapag ka ang party list ay humaharap ng disqualification, hindi mo na pinapaproklama. O kapag ka naman ang humaharap ng disqualification ay yung nominees, hindi mo na pinoproklama yung nominees, pero pinoproklama na po yung party list.
Commissioner Garcia said this is to erase doubts that it is already too late if the candidate gets proclaimed even with a pending case. Meanwhile, 172 out of 173 COCs have been canvassed. The remaining COC will be from the special elections that will be conducted in several barangays in Lanao del Sur. The National Board of Canvassers will resume their session at 11 in the morning tomorrow. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Senate has received more than half of all certificates of canvass and election returns in the country for the presidential and vice presidential elections. The ballot boxes containing the COCs will be housed in the Senate for the meantime before its canvassing. Harleen Delgado will tell us why.
A week after the elections, the certificates of canvass or COCs for the presidential and vice presidential elections continue to arrive at the Senate. As of this morning, 128 COCs have been received by the Senate. That's almost 74% of the 178 COCs that are expected to be transmitted to the upper chamber. Those that were recently transmitted to the Senate include COCs from Quezon Province, Isabela, Mountain Province, Lapu-Lapu City, Davao del Norte, General Santos City, Sultan Kudarat, and North Cotabato. COCs from the overseas absentee voting were also accepted, including those from India, Lebanon, and Italy. For now, the ballot boxes containing the COCs will be stored in a storage facility in the Senate building in Pasay City before transferring to the Batasang Pambansa in Quezon City. On May 24, both houses of Congress are expected to convene in a joint session to start the canvassing of votes for the presidential and vice presidential elections. Article 7, Section 4 of the Constitution states that the election returns for president and vice president shall be transmitted to the Congress, directed to the Senate President. The COC shall be opened in a joint public session not later than 30 days after the day of the election and shall be canvassed by the Congress upon determination of the authenticity. The public can watch the reception of COCs and ERs at the Senate through its live stream on the official YouTube page of the Senate of the Philippines. Harleen Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Former COMELEC Commissioner Rowena Guanzon expects to be back in government service as her party list group is poised to win a seat in the 19th Congress. But she is not among the 5 nominees of the P3-PWD. The COMELEC NBAG says it will determine if Guanzon can sit as a substitute. Dante Amento will give us the details live. Yes, Dante, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, William. In her recent social media post, former COMELEC Commissioner Rowena Guanzon said that she is back to work from commissioner to congresswoman. But the COMELEC cannot confirm yet if Guanzon is a nominee of the P3PWD party list, which she campaigned before the elections.
I have yet to make a confirmation with the law department po regarding that. After checking, kung meron man po, we will be announcing na lang sa inyo.
COMELEC acting spokesperson, Director John Rex Laudianco explains, under Republic Act 7941 or the Party List System Act, no one is allowed to sit as substitute or representative of a winning party list unless he or she has filed the Certificate of Nomination and Certificate of Acceptance of Nomination. And the deadline for the filing of substitution has long passed, last November 15, 2021.
After that, November 16 and onwards, up to the midday of the elections, ang susunod na maaari magkaroon po ng pagbabago is on account of incapacity or death. Okay. Yun po yung permitted pa na mag-substitute after November 15.
And in case all the nominees of a party list will withdraw after the proclamation, the poll body says it is now upon the determination of the COMELEC and Bank whether a non-nominee can substitute or not.
If ever there are cases like this, for sure, the Commission will make a determination, and that determination will be through a hearing. Hindi sinasabing bawal, hindi sinasabing pwede, but it's a case-to-case basis wherein the Commission will be making a determination po.
William, the Commission disclosed that though it happened in the past that there were some nominees of a party list who withdrawn after proclamation, but there's still a need for the COMELEC and Bank to convene or conduct a hearing for them to determine or decide who will be the substitute. And that's the latest live from PICC. Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you. Dante Amento reporting live from PICC. Presumptive Vice President Sara Duterte clarifies that pushing for the mandatory ROTC among the youth has nothing to do with her becoming the new Department of Education Secretary. Janice Inhente explains why.
Although presumptive Vice President Sara Duterte campaigned on January this year that she would propose the mandatory rendering of military service or Reserve Officers Training Corps or ROTC among the youth, Duterte Carpio clarified that it has nothing to do with her becoming the next secretary in the Department of Education.
Walay connection po. With regard to ROTC and Department of Education, remind lang ko sa tanan mga bright that the Department of Education is all about basic education plus ALS. So it has nothing to do with ROTC.
Various groups raised speculations about the return of ROTC following presumptive President Bongbong Marcos Jr. announced last week that Mayor Sara accepted the position as Education Secretary. Sara Duterte's camp also downplayed the claims that her priority in DepEd would be the ROTC. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police hailed the local leaders for effectively reducing attempts of the New People's Army to carry out their extortion rackets during the 2022 elections. Leia Ilagan explains why.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines believes that the New People's Army received no support from the candidates last May 9, 2022 elections. That is why the communist rebels did not afford to launch an attack and sow terror during election day. AFP spokesperson Colonel Ramon Zagala says, aside from program of the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict or NTF-LCAC, The peaceful election may also be attributed to the cooperation of the candidates to the security forces.
As you know, these rebels require popular support. And popular support is their strength. And to be able to organize this popular support against government. So dahil doon, humina sila ng humina, although meron pa rin sila, they're unable to move as freely as I would want before. No? Kasi dati, kayang-kaya nilang gumalaw kasi madami silang areas that they have support.
PNP spokesperson Police Colonel Jean Fajardo says they only recorded 20 validated election-related incidents. The figures are lower compared to 2010 national elections with 166 election-related incidents and 133 last 2016 elections.
Noong 2010 and 2016 ay marami doon ay galing doon sa mga harassment at sa mga permit to campaign na mga strategy, illegal activities ng ating mga communist terrorist group. At since na-address na po yan sa pamamagitan ng mga programa under the NTF-LCAC ay malaki po talaga ang ibinaba.
The 20 validated election-related incidents happened in regions 1, 3, 9, 10, and Cordillera. 7 of these incidents are still under investigation, 9 are referred to the prosecutor's office, while 4 are already filed in court. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
In other news, the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, expects heavier traffic during rainy days. The agency says the volume of motorcycles add to the congestion. Asher Kadapan Jr. details why.
The number of motorcycle riders plying Metro Manila thoroughfares, particularly EDSA, has doubled since pre-pandemic. As the metropolis starts to experience downpours, their volume affects the flow of vehicles. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority explains that this is due to motorcycle riders blocking a lane under footbridges as they flock for shelter from the rain.
Ang isang nakikita namin na problema is kapag umulan, yung mga nakamotorsiklo, dami na natin motorsiklo ngayon, halos doble ng pre-pandemic yung volume ng motorcycles natin, sumisilong sila sa ilalim ng mga flyovers at saka ng mga footbridges.
With this, the MMDA appeals to riders to utilize the motorcycle lay-by to avoid further congestion during downpour.
Kunyari, inabot ng ulan, yung nakamotor, wala siyang pangsangga sa ulan, wala siyang raincoat, pwede siyang sumilong muna doon sa mga lay-by na ginawa ng MMDA sa mga ilalim ng mga flyovers. Nilagyan namin, inayos namin yan, nilagyan namin ng mga road signs, and kahit gabi, maliwanag yan, nilagyan namin yan ng mga solar-powered lights.
The Motorcycle Philippine Federation, however, expressed their dismay as they no longer have access to such bay areas in EDSA after the busway in the inner lane was established.
Talaga kailangan ng motorcycle bay. Unang-una, hihinto yan pag nagsuot ng raincoat. No? Agree ako doon sa mga motorcycle bay ngayon. Pero yung motorcycle bay natin ngayon, dinadaanan na ng bus lane. Hindi na kami makapasok. Lalo na dyan sa EDSA.
Authorities advise motorcycle riders to bring raincoats to alleviate the heavy traffic during rainy days. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
An infectious disease expert says there is no indication of local transmission of Omicron subvariant BA.2.12.1 in the Philippines. The Health Department advisor also urges the next administration to continue the strategy and programs of the government's pandemic task force in combating COVID-19. Rosa Dicos explains why.
Infectious diseases expert and Health Department advisor Dr. Edsel Salvania said there's no indication yet that there is already local transmission of the Omicron subvariant BA.2.12.1. However, he added it is safer to assume that the variant is present in communities. Based on data, Omicron subvariant BA.2.12.1 is estimated to be around 20% more infectious than BA.2.
Sa ngayon, walang indication po yan, Yusek Rocky. Kasi, I mean, it's possible, lalo na sa pagkakahawa ng mga ang bilis manghawa kasi ng Omicron. Pinag-aaralan pa po yan, but it's always safer to assume na nandyan na yan, kaya kinakailangan po patuloy yung pag-ingat natin.
According to DOH, BA.2.12.1 has been detected in Metro Manila and Puerto Princesa, Palawan. Meanwhile, infectious diseases expert Dr. Salvan urged the incoming administration to continue the programs of the current government in combating COVID-19, particularly the COVID-19 restrictions and protocols despite low COVID-19 rates in the country.
Sa ngayon, I think very important, especially for the incoming administration, na ipagpatuloy po natin yung mga magagandang nagawa at yung mga interventions natin that are in place, the best practices, para po hindi biglang mag-surge yan. Kasi pag mangyari po yan, medyo makakadiskaril talaga yan.
He said the government must always prepare for the emergence of more infectious and potentially deadlier new coronavirus variants.
Kasi kung bigla po natin talagang palitan yan, tanggalin natin yung mask mandates or hindi tayo kasing tutok sa pagbabakuna, makaumakyat na naman ulit at mas mahirapan tayo. We are in a good at a good stage right now na as much as possible we want to maintain it.
Currently, 987 or 60% of the total component cities and municipalities in the country are under Alert Level 1, while several areas are in Alert Level 2.
Ito namang alert level system natin, Yusek, flexible naman yan. So kung may makita tayong pagtaas, pwede naman nilang baguhin pa rin yan. Pero sa ngayon, wala pa naman, no threat pa naman tayong nakikita.
Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A historic shift happened after Finland and Sweden confirmed on Sunday that they will apply for NATO membership as a response to Russian invasion of Ukraine. Ruth Bahe will tell us why live. Good evening, Ruth.
I'll say good evening. After decades of military non-alignment, Finland and Sweden's leaders have announced their joint application for NATO membership over the weekend to strengthen the two countries' securities. Finnish Prime Minister Sanna Marin spoke in a joint conference with President Sauli Niinisto about their decision.
We have reached today an important decision in good cooperation between the government and the President of the Republic. We hope that the Parliament will confirm the decision to apply for NATO membership during the coming days.
Sweden's Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson also voiced out the importance of their government's decision.
This decision that we have taken in our party is a decision we think this is best for Sweden and the Swedish security. It's not something against Russia, but it's what we think is best for us.
The application will be filed within the next 2 or 3 days, and the accession process could take several months by all the alliance members' approval. However, Russia has warned both countries that joining NATO is a mistake, and also the consequences, including deploying nuclear weapons. Niinisto has informed President Vladimir Putin last Saturday about joining NATO and described their talk as straightforward but also calm and cool. Meanwhile, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan showed objections over Finland and Sweden's NATO application, but Niinisto is ready to discuss and resolve any issues between them. Elsie?
Thank you, Ruth Bahe, for that live report. The Group of Seven, or G7 leading economies, is calling for urgent action to release the stores of grain in Ukraine that are being blocked by Russia. Mavian Dog will tell us why live. Yes, Maeve?
Elsie, in a meeting held over the weekend, top G7 diplomats stated that the war has led to a global food and energy crisis, threatening the poor and the most vulnerable countries. Up to 50 million people, particularly in Africa and the Middle East, could be facing hunger in the coming months unless the Ukrainian grain is unblocked. This grain LC accounts for a sizable share of the worldwide supply. The group stated that they are determined to preserve global food security and demanded for Russia to immediately cease the attack on Ukraine's ports so they can be used to export agricultural products. Canada's Foreign Minister Melanie Joly said Canada stands ready to send ships to European ports so Ukrainian grain can be brought to those in need. Meanwhile, Russia has dismissed claims that the country is responsible for driving up food prices and the worsening global hunger, stating that the prices are rising because of the sanctions imposed by the West. The G7 has also called for China to support Ukraine's independence and to not assist Russia in its war of aggression. Back to you, Elsie.
Maeve, and what does Ukraine have to say about their blocked grains?
Well, Elsie, the Foreign Minister of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, said that Ukraine remains willing to negotiate with Russia about unblocking the grain supplies that are currently in their silos. Aside from that, Elsie, they are also seeking a political agreement to actually end the war itself. But so far, they have not received any positive feedback from Moscow. Elsie?
Thank you. Maeve and Doug reporting live from Australia. Entering the third year of pandemic, COVID-19 still continues to impact the economy and employment rates of Hong Kong. Charisse Longbowen will give us the details live. Yes, Charisse?
Good evening, Elsie. With Hong Kong suffering their fifth wave of COVID-19 transmissions, unemployment rates have only continued to rise, Financial Secretary Paul Chan Mopo revealed yesterday. In his blog, Secretary Chan compared data to the previous years and highlighted the increase of unemployment in 2020 from 3.4% to 6%, which further peaked at 7.2% in 2021. This was met with a decrease to 4% by the end of the year. However, just 3 months in 2022, a 5% unemployment rate has already been sustained, only continuing to increase as COVID-19 restrictions persist. Likewise, Hong Kong's economic growth has also suffered a 4% contraction from its 6.3% growth in 2021. Setting current figures aside, Secretary Chan assured in his blog that with the gradual ease of restrictions, unemployment rates in Hong Kong will likely improve. Elsie?
Charisse, what is the current fifth wave of COVID-19 looking like in Hong Kong?
Elsie, on Sunday, Hong Kong acquired 259 new cases of COVID-19, and overall, since the pandemic began in 2020, has accumulated a total of 1,208,500 cases, and unfortunately with 9,361 deaths. Currently, only 83% of the population has been vaccinated. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Charisse Longbowen, for that live report. China withdrew as host of the 2023 Football Asian Cup in the latest cancellation of the country's sports hosting duties during the COVID-19 pandemic. China was due to host the 2022 Asian Games in Hangzhou in September, but that was postponed along with nearly all international sports events in the country. China did host the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing, though under a strict lockdown for athletes and officials, with few fans able to attend. China's withdrawal could let Qatar or Saudi Arabia step up as hosts, while both are bidding in a contest to host the 2027 edition. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Elsie Marcos, live from Auckland, New Zealand. Good evening.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word giving glory to God from the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 15, and it says, "But if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses." And those those are the reasons behind the news, the 16th of May 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold because we need to know. We will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.